Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome back for another episode. This is Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for sticking with us. I don't know, we're somewhere in the 300s, whatever. Doesn't matter who's counting, right? Today I want to talk about an article I stumbled across. It was an article that was on a blog page for Brian Ahern, and the name of his company is Influence People. He's the Chief Influence Officer. If you've been with the podcast since the beginning, you'll probably recognize that name. Brian was a guest early on, a couple of times actually. He was a guest, episode 58, which was May 23rd, 2019, and then he was a guest again, episode 103, which was September 12th, 2019. I probably need to reach out to Brian and get him back on. But Brian put an article up on his blog. He has a lot of interesting stuff, but this one really jumped out at me. It's called the 4-Step Reciprocity Loop. Let me say that again. The 4-Step Reciprocity Loop for Better Relationships. And the article starts out, I'm not going to read the whole article, but it starts out with, I recently overheard a conversation where an individual mentioned the kindness of a friend. She said that whenever she goes to her friend's business, that the friend never charges her for whatever the services she provides. While the woman said she appreciates the friend's generosity, she has a strong desire to do something in return for her friend in recognition of the kindness. The problem is that her friend usually refuses any return gesture. And then Brian goes on to explain that this creates an imbalance in the relationship. He talks about, he references social science in here, which he's a big fan of, I'm a big fan of as well. And we are hardwired to help one another. We're hardwired to help one another, and this harkens back to a time not so long ago, relatively speaking, 5,000-10,000 years ago, which is not so long ago, again, relatively speaking, because humans have been around for a long time. But we lived in small clans or tribes of 100, 150 people, and you needed to contribute to that tribe to stay within that tribe or that clan, however you want to define it. And if you didn't, you were out, and so being out was not a good thing. We all like to. I have a friend who's off camping. He's pretty much off the grid, and hey, that's neat. That's neat for a weekend, maybe a week, 10 days, a month tops. But we need each other. We need each other to survive. And so if you were out of these tribes or clans, you were done. And so socially, we contributed to one another. It was kind of a social, part of the social fabric. And it's really become part of our DNA that we are hardwired to help one another. And, Brian sort of brings that up, is that we are hardwired to help one another. And when we help others and our ability to reciprocate is rebuffed, as he said, it creates this imbalance, and it makes it awkward. It makes the situation awkward. And I've run into, there have been times where I've run into people where, you ask, what can I do? Or they're part of a setting where everybody's kind of putting out there, hey, these are the things that I need, and here are the things I can do to help others. And these people will say, well, I'm not really here to ask. I'm just here to give. And I will get a hold of those people after the fact and say, it doesn't work that way long term. I appreciate what they're trying to do, but long term, that's equally as bad as the person who says, you know what, I'm just going to try and take from the situation. I'm not looking to give, which is just the direct opposite of it. It doesn't last long term. If you stop and think for a moment that giving and receiving is kind of this grid, if you will. And on that grid, it's a 2x2 grid, if you will. On the one axis of the grid, what you're going to find is whether people are interested in helping you. They're either open to helping you or not interested in helping you. We'll call that the horizontal axis of the grid. And then on the vertical axis of the grid, again, it's only a 2x2 matrix. There's somebody that you're willing to give to or not willing to give to, or somebody willing and able to give to, or unwilling and unable to give to. And it obviously gets a little more complex than that. But the best situation to be is that upper left quadrant where you're willing and able to give to them and they're willing and able to give to you. Those are the best relationships. If it's a situation where you're willing and able to give to them and they're not willing or able to give to you, it's going to break down. At some point in time, it's going to break down. Likewise, if it's a situation where they're willing to give to you and you're not able to return that, it sounds neat. Wow, this person's just coming out of nowhere and they're going to help me. But in time, it gets awkward. It really gets awkward. My first experience with this was years ago. I was working with a coach, if you will, a business psychologist, as he termed himself. And I wasn't involved with AmSpirit Business Connections, so this was the mid-'90s. And we're just talking about growing my legal practice, and he was asking what I charged and how I got business. And, I'd mentioned to him that I had certain cases, people that I just did things for free. And, they weren't necessarily pro bono situations, but just people I was trying to help out. And I told him I was always very perplexed because I would offer to do things for free and the people wouldn't take me up on it. And it just, to me it was perplexing. At least in the moment it was perplexing. I understand now that, people are uncomfortable about that. They're uncomfortable with that situation. They're uncomfortable because when they're getting something for free, they don't know what the ultimate cost might be. Okay, you're not charging me, but what do you need? I guess the other concern is when somebody's offering something for free is what's the value you're going to get for that? And I get it. There might be little things that you'll do for somebody for free. I don't know in Brian's article what the services that are never charged for, what sort of things are they? I mean, if they're just little sorts of things that are probably more trouble to bill for than the money's worth, then I get it. I totally get it. Why you're going to give something away for free. Someone practicing law, someone might call me and say, hey, just had a quick question, answer the quick question, hey, send me a bill. It's like, you know what, I'm not going to send you a bill. It's just going to be more effort than, it's worth. Send me a referral, use me when you have something bigger. Those are ways of, paying back. Tell somebody about me, whatever it is. Are much more meaningful than working together a bill for whatever it might be for a 5-minute phone call. And I realize attorneys take all sorts of criticism for sending out bills for 5-minute phone calls. And that's fine. I'm not going to get into that. But when you're getting and not able to give back, it's going to kind of create this imbalance. And likewise, when you're giving and not getting back, it creates this imbalance. And it really, as Brian talks about it in his article, it needs to be this loop of, constantly going round and round. People who contact you on social media or might call you. Social media's just made it so easy for people to, I guess, cold call. I mean, they can literally thousands and thousands and just kind of take their nose in silence, or take silent no's, I guess is how I would term them. But people will reach out, and those aren't really relationships. They're really transactional. Somebody's calling and they want to just sell you something. I look at that as transactional and not necessarily a relationship. And a relationship is where it's going, back and forth and back and forth. They're looking out for you and you're looking out for them. And for it to truly be a long-term ongoing relationship, there's got to be this ongoing, hey, I'm looking for ways to help you and you're looking for ways to help me. And so, Brian talks about this loop in there, and he really kind of addresses the people out there who are much like I was. Hey, don't worry about it. I'm just going to do it. And I need this medicine probably as much as most people. I need to be able to articulate to people where they can help me. Because if I don't, I create this imbalance. But he talks in here, he talks about, when you're not allowing somebody to do something in return, he says you need to consider how the other person is feeling about the relationship. Now, when I do something for somebody, I feel great. I enjoy helping people. And when I don't let them help me in return, somehow, some way, I'm denying them that feeling. I'm really taking from them. And I try to keep that in mind. And I'm as imperfect as they come with respect to this stuff. I need to be a better giver. I need to be a better receiver. But I need to keep in mind that people want to help me in return. And they want to feel good about the relationship. And I need to give them opportunities to try and help me. And I think the lesson that I have found with respect to this 4-step reciprocity loop, which I'll quickly go through, allowing people to give to me, is one, being ready with things that they can do. And I think we're all prone to, you want to help me? Well, here's this one big thing. Lay a big fat client in my lap. That'll help me. Well, that's not realistic, and it's not necessarily appropriate for a 5-minute answer to a quick legal question. But some of the things we can do that are smaller might be, listen, I'm going to be posting something up on LinkedIn. If I send you the link, would you please like, comment, and share? That would really help me. I've really taken a lot of time to write this article, and your help getting some engagement on this. You don't have to do all my posts, but this one in particular you can help me with. Or, I would really appreciate an introduction along these lines, somebody you happen to know. And from time to time, I have to remind people that, you've done a lot for me. And don't feel bad if, you're not helping me in the moment. But, Brian goes on and he talks about the 4-step loop of good reciprocal relationships. And this is where both parties are following this pattern. The first step is a sincere willingness to give. You've got to want to try and help people. And the second part in that loop is that the person you're giving to, they have to have a willingness to receive. It's really a wasted effort if you're doing something to give to somebody and they're not going to take advantage of it. Hey, I think you would be a great guest on this particular podcast, and then they never do anything with it, or they just don't want to do something with it. But they have to be willing to receive. And then they have to have a desire to reciprocate. And that doesn't always happen. Sometimes we'll do things for people. I'll do things for people. I'm sure everybody has a story. And you don't even get a thank you. It's just they're off on their merry way doing whatever, and you don't even get a thank you. And so they don't necessarily have a desire to reciprocate. And that's going to make the loop break down. Well, really, any of these things will make the loop break down. If you don't have a willingness to give, the loop never really gets started. And if the other person is not willing to receive, then your gift is effectively not given if they're not receiving it. And if they don't have a desire, if they receive it and don't have a desire to reciprocate, then the loop breaks down. But then the fourth part of this is your willingness to receive. They're doing something in return, and your willingness to receive. So with any relationship, professional relationship, personal relationships, think of things with respect to your spouse. It kind of works the same way, where there's a kind of a giving and receiving. You know what? I'm willing to go to your parents because you're willing to go to my parents. And this year we're spending Christmas with your family, and next year we're going to load up the car and head in the other direction and go to my family. And that's the 4-step reciprocity ring as it manifests itself with respect to personal relationships. And there's lots of different examples. But as Brian Ahern indicates, these 4 steps, this 4-step loop, again, a sincere willingness to give, the willingness to receive on the part of the other person. The person you're giving to has got to be willing to receive. There's got to be a desire on their part to reciprocate, and then you've got to be willing to receive what it is that they're giving in return. Those things have to be in place. That's what you really need to work on in a relationship, and it's really a function of opening your mind to all the various ways that you can help one another. So just something to think about. Again, I'll reach out to Brian and get him back on. He's got so many things to talk about with his with all the things that he does. Just some background on him. He's an international trainer and coach, and he's one of only 20 people in the world that was personally trained by Robert Cialdini, who is the most cited social psychologist on the science of ethical influence. And Brian wrote a book. His first book is called Influence People, Powerful Everyday Opportunities to Persuade that are Lasting and Ethical. It's a good book. I would go out and grab it. So just to wrap up, let people know we are looking to add people to our stable of franchisees. This is a unique franchise opportunity. It's a business opportunity or a franchise opportunity to where you can help, or someone you know can help other businesses get more contacts, get information, get opportunities through a weekly meeting setting. It's networking. It's a networking group. It's a franchise for networking groups. If you're interested in exploring it, it's unique in that it allows you to continue to do the things you're already doing. All my franchisees do something else for a couple hours in the morning, a few mornings a week. They are operating the AmSpirit Business Connections franchise opportunity. The rest of the time, they are attorneys, accountants, realtors, coaches, consultants of various kinds, travel agents, merchant service, website designers. Really kind of runs the gamut. Have an interest? Shoot me an email, or if you what would be really great if it's someone you're going to refer me to, email them and copy me on the email, and that kind of will take you out of the loop, if you will. Have a great day.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.